Okay, so this video, I want to share what I figured out I needed to do in Canvas so that if I was using a contract grade, my students who weren't paying attention to what they needed in each category could still be clear and not get confused. So let me share my screen for that. Okay, so I think ungrading or contract grading is something that we want to keep doing. It's super helpful for students. And I think it's just, as an educator, a better practice. What do you want to learn? How are you doing the practice for that learning? Giving them feedback. But we need to work with Canvas, and it's taken me quite a while, and my colleagues quite a while to sort of stop fighting with Canvas. So one of the things that might seem obvious to you is I created a separate assignment category for each item in my contract grade. So students, the idea of the contract grade was they could look at what they needed to do and they could decide, okay, I want to get a 3.0 in this class. I see I need to do these things to meet that contract. I want to get a 3.5. I need to do these things. So translating that into where they can just look at Canvas and see that. So here again, this is a sample of a contract grade. So, okay, let's just assume I want to get a 2.0. I need a 69% or more in the category in Canvas of process work. I need a 50% or more in the category of final revised essays. So to get a 75%, to get that 2.0, I need all those things. So, and if I want a 3.0, I need these percentages in every category. So I would be struggling, for example, students would have an 82% in these, but they wouldn't have 100% in their final revised essay. And Canvas wasn't making that clear for them. So they couldn't translate from this to what Canvas was showing them. So every quarter, my colleagues and I were trying again to be more clear with the contract grade, to take more time to explain it. But we still had students who said, Canvas says I'm getting a 90%. And then at the end of the quarter, I'm getting an 85. They couldn't see how the contract grade was translating. So what I figured out is I need to give students a 0 in the assignments in that category. So let's say they need to get 100% on all 3 of their essays. I need to go in and give them a 0 on those so that as they earn what they need, then their grade would move up. So let me show that to you. So you might have found a different way to do this, or now that I'm showing you, you might say, well, that's obvious. But it took me a while to figure out how to communicate this to students where they just needed to look at Canvas and that was all they needed. So for my contract, they need to get, they can get an 85% in the course unless they do some final projects. That's how they would get a higher grade. So what I've done here is I've gone into their final project number 1, and I've given them a 0. So everybody has a 0 on that for now, so that the 15% of their grade that they could earn there is right now a 0. So I'm holding them there. That way, if they look at their total course grade right now, the highest they can get is an 85%. And I've gone ahead and said, I know there's another final project and another final project. So to get the full 15%, they need to do 3. And so I'm just, by giving them all a 0 now, then it populates this category with a 0%, so that they are not falsely thinking, I have almost 100% in the course right now. And then later, if they don't do this work, then that would pull their grade back. So this just holds that spot for them and for me, so that if they're doing everything they should be doing without any final projects, they should be earning an 85% in the course. So here is my attempt to communicate that with students. So on the left, their participation is worth 10%. In the middle, their practice assignments are worth 75%. And then on the right, their final projects are worth 15%. And you can see I'm holding that as a 0. So if we look at the third student here, They're getting 100% on everything right now. They've done all the practice, but because I'm holding this space, their grade is an 85%. So they're not falsely thinking that they're getting 100% right now. They need to choose to do some final projects if they want to earn higher than an 85%. So those final projects are the place where you're going to do more learning, more practice, so that your grade would be higher than an 85%. Okay, and then I think I'm trying to decide if this is helpful. Yep, nope. This is where I'm at right now. And so then when I say to them, okay, it's week 5, start looking at the final project options, decide what you want to do, they can see, oh yes, I'm happy with my 85%. I want to do those. Or, oh, I want to get a little bit more. And I've also had to learn to be clear about how many assignments are going to be in that bucket so that I can tell them. So now I know they only have to do 3 things, but they need to choose which are the 3 things you want to do. Now, if you choose to do 1, it's still going to bump your grade because that's an entirely separate category only devoted to improving your grade. So they can do 1 or 2 or 3. So I would argue that this fulfills the contract portion of the grade where they decide how much work do I want to do for what kind of a grade. But at the same time, they can decide, they can plug in grades and say, well, what if I did 1? How would that affect my grade? So let me show that again. So as you may know, students can go into their own grades and they can plug in, what if I got 100% on my final project number 2? They can immediately go and see how would that affect their final grade. So they can choose how much work they want to do for the course. Okay, so the reason I'm doing this is so that students don't get surprised by their grade later. Again, you might say, most of my students are paying attention and they understand the system. I agree. It's those few students who think they just glance at that Canvas grade at the top of their screen and they think they're fine and they don't realize what their grade is going to be if they don't complete all of it. And again, they can go into Canvas and put in imagined grades, and that'll tell them what their grade could be. I think the last thing I'll show is that because I'm trying to get them to do practice, they don't have to get 100% on all the practice. So let me just show that. So here in my Canvas course, they're going to do a lot of practice and I want them to have choice and I want them to have flexibility. So here I'm in assignments over here on the left, assignments. So here's my home screen, but I'm going to go again back down to assignments. And if you don't know this, in assignments, I can choose, okay, for participation, which is that 10% of come to class, do whatever we're doing. And then, yeah, we always have an activity. So I've got 2 rules. So here on my right, I can edit that and then I can change my rules. So I've decided that their participation is going to be worth 10%, but I'm going to drop their 2 lowest scores. So they can just, whatever they don't feel like doing for a couple of them, I'm just going to drop that. And then I can say, oh yeah, I'm going to say, please don't drop attendance as one of them. Attendance has its own flexibility. And then I could add anything else I wanted for things that it should never drop, but it can drop any 2 except for attendance. Then the other thing is down here in practice, I've got 2 rules set up already. And if I hover, we can see them, but it's so tiny that I want to show again. I would just edit. And so I'm going to have them drop the 4 lowest scores, whatever they are. They might even choose not to do some activities, but I don't want them to drop their final essays. Never drop their final essay. Okay, now it's time for me to go ahead and say I also don't want them to drop, oh, do we have essay 2 finished? We don't. So I can't say the second thing, but once we complete our second essay, I don't want them to be able to just not turn in an essay but any of the other practices, it'll drop their lowest scores. So I just like to provide that flexibility. Nobody has to do everything to still get 100%, whatever they want to get. And then this is also here where I've said for practice assignments, that's going to be 75% of the grade. And I just can say that right there. And then final projects, again, is 15% of the grade. So for every one of these, whatever they choose to do will only enhance their grade. So I guess the final thing I would say is here is a student looking at their grade, and this is what I mean. If for students who the other classes work differently than our class, or they're just not completely keeping track of what we're trying to achieve with contract grading, they're just going to look up here and see, I have an 81.5%. Okay, so that way, by me keeping final projects as a separate category, they don't get confused. Everything they're doing in their practice assignments and everything they're doing in their participation is adding to their grade. And that's what they're going to have unless and until they decide to do a final project. Also, they can see, close that, where they've got 100% on things, 100%, 100%, 100%. So if they haven't been paying attention, they might come to me and say, oh, why do I have an 81 when I have so many things that are 100%? And so then I would remind them that they would need to choose a final project if they wanted to increase their grade. And here, if they hover, hopefully this will work. Oh, it's not going to show. Really? That's not going to show me. If they hover, it'll say this assignment has been dropped. So it's going to drop their 4 lowest scores. And this student is looking fantastic. Let's see. Oh, there we go. So because the student chose not to turn this assignment in, this assignment has been dropped for them. So that they can quickly see, what are they missing? What have they got turned in? And then what are their grades? And then they can see that they have these zeros here and they should come see me, or some of it they can do on their own, whichever things they want to choose for their final projects. So hopefully it's just a way, because we're using Canvas, to make things easier for students to choose the grade they want, do the work they want, and see if there's something we want them to do and they haven't chosen to do it. So they don't get confused about what their grade is. All right, so that's just what I wanted to show about what I've learned to do using Canvas with Ungrading.